Hey, what's up, everyone? This is CounterAction. As I'm Andrew, and Jonathan's back from whatever his stuff was going on the last time, because it happens to everyone. And we're going to try to talk a little bit about the public and what kinds of stuff we should be expecting from them. This is kind of because of 4th of July, which we realized just happened a few days before you guys are watching this. But it kind of brings about some kind of just a brief, interesting conversation we think is worth having, because at least we were seeing people on their lawns that have stuff like, hey, don't do fireworks, PTSD veteran here. I was seeing all kinds of stuff like that on Facebook and Twitter. So that's kind of, we're just like, hey, like, how much stuff should we expect everyone else to do? Because like only 1% of the population is military, right? And then like I think it's like a percent of that in the last 20 years or so is combat vets. So we're looking at a really small percentage of folks that probably would have, understandably, very adverse reactions to things like fireworks. But should like the rest of the population, let's just, for sake of not doing math, call it 99% in theory, do things like not do fireworks. Now, there's common courtesy stuff like maybe don't do fireworks after midnight, or like maybe don't do fireworks when it makes no sense to on like June 2nd, or if it's like illegal or whatever. But like I think we got kind of like I don't even think this is like a right answer, wrong answer. I think this is just purely opinions. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. I mean, I've definitely seen people that are very much like don't do fireworks ever, but for the most part, it seems like everybody's pretty, understanding. Even people I've seen that have, the signs in their yard saying, a veteran with PTSD lives in his house. It's usually more of just don't be right in front of my house. Please understand that, don't get too close and I need some space. Not so much like don't do fireworks anywhere on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I think is kind of interesting with that is those take a lot of words, right? So I think what a lot of the public sees is grumpy old man veteran saying don't have fun. And I don't know. I think this is kind of like a different thing because like we know probably what they mean, and if you're in the community, you probably know like, hey, they probably aren't going to actually bite your head off, or like it's not really like a huge deal. But if you can think about it, please avoid it. But like the signs and stuff, people just hear, don't do it at all because I hate you having fun. So I guess I've always kind of gone by like if you know someone is, I guess, I don't know if triggered is the best word, but they have more likely to have like a adverse reaction to something. In general, you try not to do it, right? Because that's like the normal. It's like if someone's a vegan, I mean, unless you're really good buddies and you're trying to pull a joke on them, you're probably not going to be taken into a barbecue joint because like like that would offend them and they'd have issues, right? So like I feel like for me, like I used to, for some reason, have a thing with kind of not like a big thing. I think it was more me being like 21 and pretending like I was cool, having a thing with fireworks. I think is more what it was, or I just didn't like being around people, so it was just like, hey, look at this, a good excuse. But like, I don't think even when I had that, I was like, oh, no one better ever do. It was just kind of like, oh gosh, dang it, now I get to flinch for a little bit, and like that was it. Granted, other people can have way worse reactions than the guy who never deployed or was probably just thought he'd be in the cool kids club and just pseudo himself into thinking something was a deal. So what do you think, Jonathan? If someone's aware, should like a neighborhood be like, nah, screw you, man, we do what we want, or should they maybe try to figure it out?
I think there's definitely ways that you can accommodate that without having to not have your fun. I don't think that, I'm not going to say any, but I would say probably the overwhelming majority of the people that are like putting those signs out or that have problems don't want to tell people that they can't enjoy fireworks. It just obviously I haven't talked to everybody that has PTSD, but the people I have talked to about this same issue, have basically said like, I'm not trying to limit anybody else's experience, and I'm not trying to be the guy who says don't celebrate the 4th of July. I just need everybody to understand that I am not necessarily going to be involved in that, and that if you could just give me a little bit extra room, a little bit extra grace. Yeah. So according to the VA here, about 10 to 20% of veterans have PTSD, which means that you were almost exactly right with 1% of the population. Uh, it's about 3 to 4 million vets are estimated to have PTSD, and I don't think that anybody would argue that we should be changing the way that we
Yeah.
celebrate for, like you said, less than 1% of the population, or right about 1% of the population.
I would probably try to go more on if someone has a sign up, just assume they're being serious. Like, I
Oh,
suppose there could be
absolutely.
someone that's like, I just want to be a downer and I think fireworks are a nuisance, and they just make something up and just put a sign out. But I would wager the extreme majority are probably folks that would have like horrific traumatic experiences, because like
Yes.
I would assume they feel like they get a little bit of a target on them by putting something out like that. So I think you'd have to be pretty strongly convicted in general to say like, hey, don't do fireworks. But this also expands to like a whole bunch of other stuff. So like, I don't know, should like veterans be able to, if they walk into a restaurant, be like, hey, because of some stuff, like I just need to be with my back to a wall. Like, is that a reasonable request? I don't know, like, because in general, people want to try to like accommodate each other out and help each other
Yeah.
out. So like, not everyone. That's like the hardest thing with this whole mental illness. My new teaching job, I'm so excited because I have so many kids that have all these kinds of things where like no one would have any clue what they deal with. But I mean, I'll know a little bit because like I'm their teacher. But and just like navigating, like folks don't know I'm incredibly driven. So like if I see like a goal or an obstacle, I tend to be like, let's fix this problem like now, especially if I know what, or I think I know what the answer is. And so like I don't know, I think it's just a kind of an interesting thing to think about as we go about our lives. Is if you're down to like accommodate someone for fireworks, whether it's just not doing them at all, finding somewhere else to do them, or you could even try being like, hey, knock on their door. If they answer, be like, hey, I saw your sign, just thought I'd let you know we were hoping to do fireworks like at this time. Is that cool? Because maybe even doing that, if you wanted to go way the extra mile, because then they can
Yeah.
maybe put on their phones, be like, hey, Johnson kids fireworks today. So if they start flashing, maybe they know to look at their phones and they get reminded. Like, I don't know. That's just one idea that I
Yeah.
had. And then how this applies to all the other stuff. Like, you're not going to ever know. This is just like a life thing, you know, Jonathan. Like, if you walk up to someone and say, "Hey, fuck you," like you don't know how they're going to respond. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of a deep. So like, if you just try to be nice to everyone and just try to understand, that usually will be better. Like, I got this teaching job I have now partially because when I was in high school like 10 to 14 years ago, the principal of the school that I'm now working at happened to be a teacher where I was and remembered me and says that he remembered me as like a kind, fun-loving guy. And I'm pretty sure that's mostly why I got the job. So like, keep that in mind. So you never know. I know you're short on time, so is there anything you would like to add with this? I don't know. There's no right answers. I don't feel like we need
Yeah.
us to talk forever. It's more like get the wheels going, so maybe people send the emails or something.
Yeah. Well, just kind of on that same path that you were kind of starting to go down. PTSD. Like you said, you don't know who's dealing with that, and we need to, I guess, destigmatize is kind of the best way I can put it. Like, we kind of talk about PTSD on like the 4th of July with the fireworks thing, but other than that, you don't really hear about it much in the, just in common conversation. And
Yeah,
I think that people have a very, very fundamental misunderstanding of what that looks like, both
yeah,
combat related PTSD, and then, I mean, there's also, like non-service members or service members who went through traumatic things, unrelated
yeah,
to that. And you just got to remember that, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of stuff that you're never going to know about.
yeah.
So, give people some extra grace, and maybe,
And
we need
PTSD
to,
is not just a combat thing. Like my wife
yeah,
is, that's not my place to say exactly where she has PTSD from, but she does, and she was never in.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I would think most people, if she was to tell them what it was, would probably find it to be not that particularly violent and be a little bit surprised.
Yeah.
So like it depends a lot on the individual. Like certain fellow military folks, if I'm like, hey, VA says I have PTSD, and they're like, well, for what? And I tell them, we're gonna probably make fun of me. So
Yeah.
it can come from anything. All right, so we gotta wrap this up, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, I got a
Okay.
couple of more minutes here.
Okay. So would you like to close out with anything you have before we do our outro? Because I think we just kind of wanted to talk about like considering others and what should you do about it if someone makes a request kind of a thing. So
Um, I guess the only other thing I would add is if you think that we are completely off base, let us know. If you think that we are, if we hit the nail on the head, let us know. We don't just do this to hear ourselves talk, believe it or not. We want to hear from you guys.
yeah. So speaking of that, make sure if you're on YouTube, comment down below. Podcast versions, we have links to our email, which is counteraction22@gmail.com. You can always send us a thing there. You can hit us up on Twitter. I'm horrible at managing social media, so it's not really going much of anywhere. But at counteraction22, I try my best. One of these days, I might do an episode about what I've been dealing with for the last month or whatever, however long it's been by that point. But just know for now, it really sucks. And it just takes tons and tons of time. So it's just like, let us know. The email is probably the best because Jonathan and I both see that. Currently, I think I'm the only one that sometimes checks Twitter.
Yeah, I
Otherwise,
don't
thank
manage
you
my
guys.
own social media, so I'm not.
Oh, we're all so bad at that. We'll get better. If we get big enough, let's hire someone to do it because we suck at it. All right. So make sure you guys email us, counteraction22@gmail.com. To subscribe, download, like. If you're like, this was really short, we just wanted to get the conversation, the ball rolling. There's a lot of stuff. Like, I love sociology and people because there's a lot of things where there's not really one right answer. There might be better answers and worse answers, but oftentimes there's not like, this is 100% the right one. And so
Yeah,
that's kind of what we just figured. We would just try to get the ball rolling about, I guess, looking out for others, I suppose, is the gist of this, isn't it? Because if someone asks for something, like the
yeah.
sign could be, hey, I just need help. Like you just tell someone, you're like, oh, okay, man, I'm going to give you help. All right. So thank you guys all for watching. I think this was episode 10. We try to do uploads every Wednesday around 5 p.m. Eastern, I believe, is
Yep.
usually our goal. So keep look out for us on those. Thank you guys all for watching. We have been CounterAction. Thank you guys for joining in and being a part of the CounterAction to veteran issues and destigmatizing all sorts of stuff. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot, y'all. See you next time.